Be down. We're not out right now.
This is Chris Cuomo. We are here, the CNN team, in the Florida Keys. This is the hardest hit part of Florida in terms of Hurricane Irma. We have new information for you. 55 deaths from this storm, 24 from the United States. That may well not be a final count. It's almost impossible to believe that they have surveyed the entire scope of devastation. Power. 5 million customers were without power. We're getting updates that the number is much lower now. That in Florida, the reported early number of 4.2 million customers still not having it, that's low, that they've been working round the clock and they're making unexpected progress. On the mainland, not here, not in the Caribbean, major distinction. FEMA estimates that 90% of the homes in the Keys have been damaged or destroyed. We're trying to feed you in this fuzzy picture that you may be seeing. It's because there are no comms, there's no communication, there's no internet. All the usual equipment we use, we can't. We're using older, more primitive equipment to get you any kind of broadcast at all. We're trying to send you drone footage that our producer John Griffin has been shooting to show you just how terrible this is, Allison, because Allison is in New York, obviously holding the ship steady. We haven't seen anything like what we've been seeing here on Big Pine Key. Here's our story from being out with the first responders, the first team, Task Force 2, to make it to
the destruction you haven't seen. The first key, Key West, disabled by Irma. No power, water, gas. No hope for better anytime soon. And yet these scenes, backed up by the fact that so few lost their lives, a better than expected outcome. But each step closer to Cudjoe Key, where Irma's evil eye made landfall, devastation. Blocks of debris, downed power lines, and mutilated memories, tempest-tossed. More severe than anywhere else in Florida. First responders of Task Force 2 in Florida doing search and rescue have never seen anything like this. How do you make sense of all these houses are gone and then this house is standing?
Look at the draw, I guess.
Big Pine Key. Not a big pine to be seen here. Houses splintered, gone. Boats everywhere, reminding streets were rivers for hours. Ground littered with personal effects. One tape, a surreal suggestion. Yes, that says Gone with the Wind. I mean, it looks like you had a crew with sledgehammers in here who were angry at somebody.
You're right. Mother Nature, she does what she wants when she wants to. This is where the eye hit. So that's why we're focusing our primary search efforts here.
Another house blown off its slab and collapsed. A search dog gets excited. The saws and anxious looks come out. Thankfully, nothing worse than spoiled meat this time. Each block can take hours to clear. Shouting, sawing, searching, sweaty, sleep-deprived saviors work all day, into night, and day again. Everywhere you walk, a horror of the unknown. And yet for all that's lost, people remain. They come to us shell-shocked and with the same request, to use our satellite phone, to call and tell loved ones they're alive. This young family lost their home, solace in survival. Beautiful son will still have a future, but this is so hard.
I can't believe it. The water's still in the house. I can't even get in there yet.
More come, desperate to tell their kids they're okay.
Hey, Jess, I'm alive.
To tell siblings they made it.
Leslie, it's your incredibly awesome brother. Me and Mom are okay. Kind of wiped out down here. We'll get in touch with you whenever we can, but we're okay. All right, bye.
This mother and son have each other and their sense of humor. You're the best thing I've seen all day. I want you to know that.
Flying for how long?
No. The best I've seen all day. They'll need both to make it through the next few weeks and months.
Oui, livre, ça m'arrive.
Even speaking French, the message is clear. I made it, and I will never stay for a hurricane again.
The main thing I said, I don't care, even if we don't have a house, we can rebuild. But as long as we were safe, you know.
Here in what was once paradise, so many say they don't know when they'll look at the sky the same way again.
The sun is now up on another beautiful day in the Keys, but what it is shining on is ugly beyond any kind of description. The pictures tell the story. This is Big Pine. Little Torch Key is another one in the chain leading down to Key West. Also very hard hit, very tough to get to by land or water. Bill Weir braved these just storm-passed seas to come from Key Largo down here on a fishing boat. We heard from him early this morning. He's moved again. Bill, how is it there in Little Torch?
It is absolutely gorgeous. And this is the kind of morning makes people want to live down here in the southernmost neighborhood, but it is almost cruel in its beauty. Look at this, glassy seas, but just across them, I wish we could get closer to the homes there on Torch Key. Unfortunately, too shallow in here, but I can tell you through my glasses that there's not a structure that wasn't completely hammered by IRMA. Some of the other infrastructure problems we've seen coming down as we crossed over from the intercoastal to the Atlantic side of the Keys, we went under a bridge at, was it Long Key, Captain? Yeah, Long Key Bridge, and it was like a water ride at an amusement park. Fresh water pouring down from the ruptured pipe that carries sweet water down Keys into Key West. We also went ashore at one of the few islands that is only accessible from the water, Cook Island, this little stretch, just gorgeous, of a couple dozen homes there on a setting right out of a Mexican beer commercial. It just utterly, completely destroyed in jaw-dropping ways. And then on top of that, the way you see snow drifts after a blizzard, piles of coral, the kind of deep water coral you find 5 miles out and 60 feet deep. So the people like these folks over here who are waving, the people who rely on these waters to make a living as divers, as fishermen, the health of that reef matters as much as the health of their property. So the biomass that lost its life in this is great. Luckily, Chris, the human death toll, blessedly but shockingly low so far.
Yeah. No, look, beautifully said and accurate. It is surprising, with the caveat that we don't know the full extent yet. I hear you, Bill, and I'm grateful for that. To have you from that perspective on the water and coming on land is huge. When you go ashore with your crew, bring all the essentials and your sat phone if you have one, because people are going to come up to you and they're going to need to communicate with loved ones who haven't heard from them for days. Bill Weir, on a location that you wouldn't get to see otherwise. So thanks to him. We'll check back with him later in the show, and I'm sure throughout the day. But now we have a key interview. Brock Long, the FEMA administrator. He's been meeting in Puerto Rico with the governor there and governors of the Virgin Islands. Mr. Long, if you can hear us, thank you for joining us, especially in this emergency period. What is the situation like there to your eyes?
So yesterday, as you just stated, I first went to the Virgin Islands and met with Governor Mapp and his staff, and the islands took a tremendous hit. So obviously what we're trying to do is make sure that we can establish emergency power where needed to get the infrastructure back up and running. There's going to be a very sizable debris mission on the island, both vegetative and commercial demolition debris. I also wanted to put, my feet on the ground to assess security situations, and I have to say that, the islands are safe and secure. There may be isolated events of crime here and there, but overall, the island is safe and secure, and people are working together around the clock to, restore a pathway of hope and a bridge to recovery there. And FEMA's working around the clock with our partners to help to make that happen. I also met with Governor Rosselló. He and his tremendous leadership have put forward a very clear path of recovery to Puerto Rico. Obviously, the biggest issues were power failures. There were over 1 million without power, but power has been pretty much 75% restored, and will continue to come down today. So our island partners are equal. And I look forward to getting back to the continental United States today, particularly South Florida, to put feet on the ground and assess the situation there.
We know you'll be with the president when he comes to visit the southwestern part of Florida. The closest analogy to where you are is where we are here in Big Pine Key. I'm sure you've been appraised of the situation. We're with Task Force 2 here, many of the men and women who are feeding that information back to FEMA and the state authorities as well. What do you make of the situation here on the ground?
So hopefully I will be in and around Monroe County today. My schedule is to be determined depending on where we can get access and get into. But in regards to Monroe County, the damage you're seeing is exactly why we ask people to evacuate. Staying behind is just not a smart idea. And not only are you putting your own lives in danger when this type of event occurs, but as you can see, it's tough for us to get there because the logistical nature of accessing Monroe Key. I mean, there's numerous bridges that have to be inspected before we can put, commodities down the roadways to support citizens. Communication is lacking in many portions, of Monroe County. So, if citizens are frustrated, about not being able to get the support they need right now, that's exactly why we asked them to leave. I think that, we were trying to set that expectation up, but we're doing everything we can. We're working very closely with Governor Scott to try to get there and alleviate the situation, stabilize the situation in Monroe County as quickly as we can.
So let's talk about what that means. I mean, we take your message about why people were told to evacuate. Live and learn, that's the past. The present is a very urgent one. And while FEMA and the state and locals, everybody's getting very high marks now, we know what happens with time. Time breeds desperation and a change in sentiment. How long do you think the people here in the Keys will have to go without power, will have to go without the essentials of sewage and water and fuel?
Unfortunately, we've been saying, collectively, the state has done a remarkable job of getting, the power turned back on. Obviously, we're aware that there are still several million people without power. And here again, both the governor and I, if we could flip a switch and make the power work, we would obviously want to do that. But that's just not reality. It takes a long time to not only clear the pathways to get power crews in, but then also fixing the infrastructure, making sure you have the right equipment in the areas where transformers may be needed, power lines, transmission lines may be needed. It takes time. And so particularly those areas that were hardest hit, as we were saying before the storm hit, expect the power to be out for multiple days, if not weeks in some areas. So, it's my job to set the expectations, but I want, the American people to know that, my job is also to take care of people. We are working around the clock and have been and will continue to do so to try to stabilize the situation.
Well, we see it firsthand how all the resources are coming together to make a difference down here. But it's certainly going to take time. I don't want to keep you from your duties. As always, see CNN as a resource as you want information to get out to the affected people to the extent that they can absorb the information right now because there are no comms. Let us know or pass it along to Task Force 2. We'll be shadowing their efforts. Thank you very much, Administrator. Appreciate having you on the show.
All right. Take care.
All right. Be well, be safe. David Obaye with the Miami Herald. He's a reporter who braved the storm in Key West. He bedded down there so he could explain the reality immediately to everybody else. David, it's good to have you. Thank God you made it through safely. What do people need to know?
Well, I think the main thing that people need to know is that it's going to be a little bit of time before things get back to normal in the Keys, and a lot of the family members and people who are still stuck in the Keys without communication need to just be patient. I've been swamped and inundated with messages asking me to if I could please check on so-and-so in Summerlin or so-and-so on this street in Key West. And I'm just trying to reassure everyone that there hasn't been any reports of widespread casualties. There hasn't been reports of widespread injuries. And so it's just a matter of being patient. There's just literally no communications there. It's very, very difficult to come out.
They're looking at your footage at home as they watch this. I can't see it, but I've been told it's very impressive, and I'm sure I've gotten a sense of what it is. We were in Key West yesterday or the day before. I don't even remember now. But they did not get hit the way Big Pine did in the areas around Cudjoe Key. But they have some real desperation down there in terms of normalcy, fuel especially. We saw a gas truck pull up, and this line of like 40 cars like just appeared out of nowhere, and then they only to be told, but there's no electricity. So they have gas, but we can't pump it. And somebody said, well, I have a diesel generator, but he had no diesel, and this guy was only pumping unleaded. So there are problems and layers atop it, and it's easy to say have patience, but what's your expectation about how long until the mood shifts under the heat with no sewage, no water, no power, no internet?
Yeah, I think the conditions in Key West will definitely be among the most challenging because it's just more populated than some of the islands that got more hard hit with the winds. And there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people in Key West that are low income, elderly, people with animals that didn't want to evacuate. There was hundreds of people showing up in the shelter of last resort right before the storm. So you're going to have those conditions. But one thing I'll tell you, the people in Key West are remarkably resilient. They kind of know what they were getting into when they decided to stick it out. And I think a lot of people really are just striving for some sense of normalcy. I mean, the Keys have been through these types of storms before. This is obviously much worse than anyone that's hit recently. But I think the people down there are pretty resilient. I mean, literally the storm was still raging and they were still getting those last bands and rain squalls, and there was already bars open on Duval Street. So I think the people there will be fine. It's going to be miserable and it's going to be tough for a little bit, but I think they'll be just okay.
Let me tell you something, David. I can affirm that in real time. We're here in Big Pine Key, okay? It is devastated. We met the Tobacco family, an Italian family here. They were not only the only home that is still intact on their block, but within several blocks, they're the only family we saw that made it here. This morning, despite everything they're dealing with, the guy just showed up, Richard Tobacco, and he brought us coffee in a carafe and cold drinks. With everything that he's dealing with in his own life, he just brought this stuff here. I'm trying to get him to come on camera, but they're shy. They're so generous, so resilient, and the spirit of community is going to mean everything down here. Your take?
Absolutely. If you've spent any time in the Keys, especially outside of Key West, it's a pretty isolated area. It's pretty rural. There's some people that are, especially hardy. I mean, we interviewed a gentleman who rode it out on his sailboat, and he said, "Look, I've been through a gazillion hurricanes. I wasn't going to go anywhere," and he survived. Now his boat ended up getting untethered, and he ended up crashing into the mangroves. But he was out there still, hanging out, and he said, "Look, I'm going to get back on once I get my boat fixed or I get a new boat, and I'll be out there again." So I think the people, the Keys are especially resilient, and I think they'll get through this fine. And it's a pretty sparsely populated area, all in all. So I don't think there'll be the widespread catastrophe, or at least humanitarian crisis that it could have been if it had hit directly in Key West.
From your lips to God's ears. David, thank you very much for doing that hard job of staying there and documenting the reality of Key West. Appreciate it. Allison, I don't care whether Richard wants to come in or not, Richard Tobacco. You have to come here. You have to let Allison see you. She's Italian.
Let me
okay.
see him.
You can say hello. This is Richard Tobacco. He made it through the storm. He stayed with his family. He helped us all day when we were doing our shot yesterday. They keep coming out. They were working the community. They were clearing things. They were getting their life back together. This morning, he just brought me hot coffee. Who's better than you?
I brought you milk. It's not cream, but it is a hurricane.
The optimism that you have. Yesterday, we're walking around your house, and you're showing me all the devastation, and you say, this is a win.
Sure. We can, we've got all our hands and toes and all my family members. Things can be replaced. You can't replace family.
To the people who say they want to come back, they want to see their homes, they want to deal, what do you say?
Don't even bother. We shouldn't be here. There's nothing. Services are a long ways away. We're truly on our own. There's nothing here. There's no gas. There's no water. There's no stores. There's no electricity. There's no cell phone service. Just stay away for about 2 weeks. Let the first responders and the CNN guys, let them do their job, and you can all come back later. But there's nothing here to come back to.
How is today for you when you woke up this morning?
Today is an awesome day. My boss gave me a generator that didn't work. I fixed the carburetor on it 3 times. I have electricity. He slept in my bedroom with air conditioning last night. I've got battery-powered fans. hot coffee, food. The milk is cold again. It's a good day.
Allison, first of all, thank you, brother. I appreciate all the help. Let me tell you something about this guy. Thank you, brother. We will. So Richard yesterday wants to show me that everything's okay. He's a motorhead. He can fix anything. So the first thing he wanted to check when he came out of his house yesterday is he gets in his Mustang and he burns out down the street. And that was a sense that life's going to be okay. Richard, thank you very much. You're the best.
And I know how much
I mean, it's the little things in a
Chris.
situation like this. There's no one within blocks of their family. I respected that, but this coffee is a close second now.
Well, that's interesting, Chris, because he seemed very upset not to deliver cream to you. I get the sense that you're demanding your morning cappuccino from the residents there and perhaps the peeled grapes that we give you every morning. And I would say just lower the diva demands to those folks, okay?
Yeah, it's impossible for me. That's why they don't usually send me out on these. This is I'm not built for this. I'm not like these people down here. They are as real as they are resilient. They're coming together. The community spirit will mean everything to them. And they all say hello. They're big fans of yours, of course.
Of course they are. But honestly, Chris, it is so great to have you talking with all of the folks on the Keys because we really get a sense of that conch culture that you and Bill Weir have been talking so much about what survivors they are, you know, about how resilient. I mean, it's like, as you have said, this culture has basically been thrust 50 years back in time. Right now, I mean, with the lack of power and water and communications, I mean, it's sort of Robinson Crusoe there, and we are just getting a real sense of their character from your interviews with them.
I wish we didn't have to tell the story. I really do. I wish that the desperation wasn't what drew the focus. But, you know, as we keep saying, often the worst in Mother Nature brings out the best in human nature. And we're seeing it. We're seeing it with the tobacco family and families just like them all over these Keys. But the problem is their reality. You got the romanticism of the conch culture meeting a reality of life that is going to be very hard for a long time to come.
Understood. Well, listen, Chris, we'll be back with you in a moment, but we want to go check out some of the other places because several islands in the Caribbean have been destroyed by Hurricane Irma. So at this hour, it's very hard for officials to accurately assess the size and scope of the damage. Look at the Caribbean there on your map. So international anchor Cyril Vanier gives us some sense of it all from the hard-hit island of St. Martin. Cyril, what are you seeing?
Hi, yeah, I want to take you through just a little 360-degree tour of what we're seeing, and this is kind of what you see across St. Martin right now. We just got in last night. Look at the road around you. Pretty much everything is on the floor. What's left standing is the walls and the structures of these houses. So you have people who huddle in these houses, but often the roofs are caved in. And here's the checklist that people are going through. You got to think short-term and long-term. And this is true for St. Martin, but not just St. Martin. It's also true for other islands in the Caribbean that were on the direct path of the storm. So your short-term checklist is, are you safe? In the days after the hurricane, that was not necessarily the case because of the looting. Do you have food? Do you have water? The answer to those questions here today is really touch and go. People are still living on the food supplies that they bought in bulk before the hurricane, but they're going to start running out. The water, they're helping each other out. The same thing. They're going to start running out, and they haven't seen, all the people I've spoken to here, they haven't seen the water that's supposed to be handed out by the Dutch Marines on this side of St. Martin. So food, water, safety, and your power. That's the other key one. Power is really touch and go as well, very patchy, because the power company has to come in and connect the houses one by one, checking first that there's no live wire. So that's the daily task and the daily challenges for the people around us. And by the way, when we flew into St. Martin, we were actually traveling along the direct path that the storm took from St. Martin to the U.S. Virgin Islands. So we flew over the U.S. Virgin Islands. The reports are they're experiencing pretty much the same thing, going through that same list day after day. Your food, your water, your safety, and your power.
All right, and look, they are the lucky ones. Even though life has been reduced to such essential basics, they have a life to live. And that takes us to how so many were able to survive in the hands of rescuers. And we have somebody who's doing that job, an ordinary citizen who decided to make a difference and somebody who was the beneficiary of just that type of spirit. Danny Chirac, he's a boat captain. He was in Puerto Rico trying to save people. And Laura Strickling, she knows Danny's wife. She was rescued and got away from the storm and its effects. Can you both hear me?
Yes. Morning. Yes, good morning.
All right, Captain, thank you very much for everything you did. Tell us about, great, it's good to have you. Tell us about the decision you made to use your boat and get out there and to help people.
Well, to be honest, I'm not a captain. It was a big group of Puerto Ricans who are all boat owners, private boat owners. They decided to accept donations to different spots in San Juan, consolidate everything, take it to Fajardo, and we loaded it up in about an estimate of about 30 boats to take to St. Thomas, St. John, Bertola, Virgin Gorda, offload over there, and then we welcomed people to get on the boats to come back to Puerto Rico for those who wanted to leave island.
Danny, anybody who gets in a boat, loads it up with supplies, and goes into a hard-hit and desperate area to help people is the captain, as far as I'm concerned. Laura, you were one of the people who were a beneficiary of this. What was it like for you to have people from your community reach out and provide that kind of help in that moment of need?
We truly started to feel desperate. We hadn't seen any officials on the ground in the 4 days since the hurricane. We were running out of supplies. We weren't sure when we were going to get more because, again, we hadn't seen anyone official on the ground in our neighborhood. And we have a 15-month-old baby, and we started to realize that unless help came soon, the situation was going to get desperate. So when I received Angelica's phone call saying that there might be a way off, and that it wasn't going to be an easy way off, but we knew we had to take it. We live about 10 minutes from the drop point in normal times. It took us an hour and 10 minutes to get to that dock that day. They told us the boat would arrive at 2:30, and because of different delays, it didn't come until 6, but we didn't know if it was actually going to come. So we just stood there and hoped in the sun with our baby for several hours with 5 other mothers and their babies. And I can't tell you when I've ever been happier than when we saw that boat enter the harbor.
Oh, my goodness. I can't imagine how those are the longest hours of your life. How is the baby? What is their name? How's everybody now?
Sorry. Her name is Elizabeth, and she's doing so well. You know, she's young enough that she's not going to remember this. I'm thankful for that. I am worried about the babies still in St. Thomas who need help. They still need water. They still need food. And I will do anything to get that message out. We feel abandoned by the government, and we need to have real, visible care and aid now.
We understand the urgency. We understand the message. Laura, thank God you're okay. Your baby will know about IRMA. She'll know about it in the lessons that you teach to her about how people came together and how you were rescued. And that's an important lesson. Thank God you're safe. And Captain, Danny, thank you for what you did. People like you made an immeasurable difference in a horrible situation.
Thank you. It was a group effort, lots of people involved in this. I was just a small piece of the pie.
Understood. Understood. And we're grateful for what you did and others as well. Allison, back to you in New York. Look, you know, we can show you this. This is how we got here. But how you survive, how you move forward, that's going to be about people, not places. And these stories matter just as much as any statistics or footage of the despair.
Absolutely, and we're so happy to be able to bring them to our viewers this morning. Chris will be back with you in a moment, but there is other news today, including what's going on in Washington. President Trump continues to try to woo Democrats, including Senator Joe Manchin.